To understand why a woman might feel a strange and terrible calm while being told she was being rendered homeless, you need to understand the man my husband was, and the promises we made in the quiet hours when the world was asleep. To understand why, you need to know who I really am. My story, our story, doesn't begin in that gleaming, sterile kitchen that smelled of lemons and Chloe's ambition. It begins 45 years earlier in a tiny second floor apartment where the steam heat clanked in the winter and the windows rattled in the summer wind. Robert and I started with less than nothing. We had love and we had student debt. He was a high school physics teacher, a man who saw the elegant, immutable laws of the universe in everything from a falling leaf to the swirl of cream in his coffee. I was a librarian at the public library, a woman who found solace in the quiet order of the Dewey Decimal System and the scent of old paper and binding glue. Robert was a man of quiet, specific habits. He had chalk dust of fine white powder permanently embedded in the creases of his knuckles and the cuffs of his shirts. No matter how hard he scrubbed, it was always there, a testament to his daily battles with blackboards and the beautiful complexities of quantum mechanics. He smelled always of a unique combination of old paper from the books that cluttered our small apartment and the slightly burnt coffee from the faculty lounge at his school. It was the scent of his life's work, and to me it was the finest perfume in the world. His greatest passion, aside from physics and me, was what he called his hobby. Other men had golf or fishing. Robert had the stock market, but he didn't approach it like a gambler. He approached it like a physicist. He would sit at our small kitchen table late at night, surrounded by stacks of obscure financial journals and company reports, a single lamp pooling light on his work. He muttered about market inefficiencies and fractal patterns in trading. He believed the same principles that govern the universe, entropy, momentum, conservation of energy, also govern the flow of capital. It's all just systems, Ellie, he'd say, tapping a page with his pen. People think it's emotion. It's not. It's physics. He invested small amounts, fractions of his modest teacher's salary, into things no one else was looking at. Fledgling technology companies in the 80s with strange names and big ideas. He saw the potential in the quiet hum of a microchip when others just saw a fad. During market downturns, when everyone else was selling in a panic, Robert would calmly buy. He bought small, distressed rental properties in overlooked neighborhoods, fixing them up himself on weekends. He'd come home with paint in his hair and a look of deep satisfaction on his face. He never saw it as getting rich. Her perfume, a scent that was expensive and floral and utterly out of place, seemed to displace the very air, the familiar smell of cedar and old books that was the scent of our home. "Oh," she said, her smile bright and brittle, "your home is so cozy." There it was, the first of 1,000 cuts, the condescension wrapped in a compliment. To Chloe, cozy meant small. It meant old. It meant lacking. Robert, bless him, was oblivious. He just saw a pretty girl who made his son happy. But I saw the flicker in her eyes. She was assessing us, weighing us, and finding us wanting. I learned later, in fragments of conversations Michael let slip, about her past. Her family had money once. Her father had a successful business that went under when she was a teenager. They lost everything: the big house, the cars, the country club membership. She'd described to Michael in vivid detail the humiliation of her mother having to use food stamps at the grocery store, the way old friends suddenly stopped calling. That experience hadn't humbled her, it had forged her. It had filled her with a terrifying, desperate fear of ever returning to that state. She didn't just want wealth, she needed to perform it, to wear it like armor so no one could ever mistake her for being poor again. My quiet, contented life, my unconcern with brands and status, wasn't just a different choice to her. It was a threat, a reminder of the world she had clawed her way out of. And so, the ledger of my generosity began, not with malice on my part, but with love. a mother's foolish, boundless love for her only child. The first item was their wedding. Chloe wanted a fairy tale, a ballroom at a downtown hotel, a dress that cost more than my first car, a guest list filled with people I'd never met. The total came to $75,000. Michael came to me, his face etched with worry. "We can't afford this, Mom." "Of course you can," I said, and the next day I went to the bank. I sat in a sterile office that smelled of industrial carpet cleaner and cashed in a series of bonds Robert had bought decades ago. I remembered him buying them, telling me they were for a rainy day. As the bank teller counted out the cashier's check, I felt a sharp pang of guilt, of betrayal to Robert's careful planning. This wasn't a rainy day. This was a hailstorm of orchids and champagne. But it was for Michael. I handed him the check, and the relief on his face was my reward. The next entry came 2 years later, the down payment. They wanted to buy a house. Chloe had found the perfect one in a gated community with a name like the estates at Willow Creek. It was ironically the very first investment property Robert and I had ever purchased, a solid brick colonial we'd rented out for years. It was fully paid off, the deed resting safely in my name. They didn't know that. They thought it was just a house on the market. I could have just given it to them, but I knew Chloe. A gift like that would come with no sense of accomplishment for her. She needed to feel she had earned it. So we created a fiction. I told them I would help with the down payment. I transferred $150,000 to their account. It was nearly all of my personal savings, the money I had put aside from my librarian's salary over 40 years. My what-if fund. What if the roof leaks? What if the car dies for good? What if I get sick? I gave them my what-ifs. They called it their starter home. Then Michael lost his job. He was in marketing, and his company downsized. He was devastated, but Chloe was terrified. The idea of cutting back, of selling the new car, or canceling the club membership sent her into a panic I could almost feel through the phone line. "He'll find something else soon," she'd said, her voice tight. "We just need to bridge the gap. We can't let people see us struggling." So the bridge was built by me. $5,000 a month for 2 years, transferred directly from the dividend account of Robert's portfolio into theirs. It was a silent, invisible lifeline that allowed them to maintain the facade of success. They never had to have the hard conversations. They never had to budget. They never had to face the consequences of their spending. They just knew the money appeared and they spent it. $120,000. The grand total, when I dared to add it up, was $345,000, a number that felt abstract until I thought about what it represented. It was Robert's late nights at the kitchen table. It had rested against my skin ever since. Now, standing in Chloe's white kitchen, the forgotten teacup cold in my hand, I knew the time had come. The scene replays in my mind with the stark clarity of a photograph. I am standing in their kitchen. The morning sun streams through the large picture window, glinting off the stainless steel appliances and the polished granite countertops. The room smells of expensive, freshly ground coffee and the faint chemical scent of Chloe's lemon-scented cleaning spray. It is a kitchen from a magazine, a room designed to be looked at, not lived in. There are no smudges, no stray crumbs, no signs of the messy, beautiful business of life. I had been staying in their guest room for 2 weeks. Chloe had undergone what she called a minor surgical procedure, which turned out to be a nose job. She'd insisted she needed me there to help, though most of my time was spent fetching her glasses of sparkling water and fluffing the pillows on her chaise lounge. That morning she had come downstairs wearing a silk robe the color of champagne. Michael followed her, already dressed for work in a suit that looked too tight in the shoulders. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He busied himself with the espresso machine, the hiss and gurgle of it filling the tense silence. Chloe picked up a glossy pamphlet from the counter and slid it towards me. "Eleanor," she began, her voice as smooth and cool as the granite, "Michael and I have been talking. We feel it's time for you to have your own space, a place with more support." I looked at the pamphlet. "Golden Vista Senior Living," it read, over a picture of 2 smiling silver-haired people playing chess on a perfectly manicured lawn. We need our privacy back, she continued, not a hint of apology in her tone. We've found this lovely facility for you. It's very clean. The staff is wonderful, they say. A stone began to form behind my sternum, heavy and cold and immovable. I looked past her to my son. He was staring intently at the tiny cup filling with dark liquid, as if it held the secrets to the universe. He was a ghost in his own home. My key, I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. Chloe's smile was thin, a brief slash of coral lipstick. Yes, we thought it best to make a clean break, for everyone. The locksmith is coming this afternoon to secure the house, so we'll help you pack your things now. Your key will no longer work. There it was, the verbatim sentence from my memory, now landing with the full weight of the $345,000 of backstory, the weight of Robert's chalk-dusted hands and Michael's boyhood laughter, the weight of my own love, so willingly given and so casually discarded. My hand, the one not holding the teacup, was trembling. I rested it on the counter to still it. The granite was cold, shockingly so. The pamphlet for Golden Vistas lay there, its glossy surface mocking me. Roses. They were supposed to have roses. I had told Chloe once, years ago, that if I ever got old and had to live somewhere else, it had to have a rose garden. This place had chests. The pamphlet slipped from my numb fingers and fluttered to the floor. Neither of them moved to pick it up. In that moment, looking at my son's back and my daughter-in-law's perfectly composed face, something inside me didn't break. It hardened. The warm, pliable love of a mother didn't vanish, but it was suddenly encased in something cold and clear and indestructible, like an insect trapped in amber. It was a moment of absolute devastating clarity. I was not family to them. I was a resource, and when the resource became a burden, it was to be disposed of, cleanly. I set the teacup down on the counter. It made a soft click, the only sound in the room besides the hum of the refrigerator. I see, I said. My voice was quiet, but it held a new density. He has managed the portfolio for the last 10 years under my direction. He knows everything. He is trustworthy. Do not be afraid of the numbers, my love. They are just tools. Use them to protect yourself. Use them to live the life you deserve. You are stronger than you think. You always have been. Yours forever, Robert. Tears pricked my eyes, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of profound, aching gratitude. Even from beyond, he was taking care of me. I picked up the business card. David Chin, Senior Wealth Advisor, Sterling and Finch. I took the thick folder labeled Property and opened it. Inside were the deeds, deed after deed, for small houses and apartment buildings all over the city, and there, about halfway through the stack, was the one, the deed to 14 Willow Creek Lane, the estates at Willow Creek, purchased in 1998, paid in full, owner, Eleanor Vance, unencumbered. I sat there in that cold, silent room, and I felt the world shift on its axis. Your husband was a remarkable man. We sat in comfortable leather chairs overlooking the city. He didn't rush me. He let me tell the story from the beginning. I told him about Michael and Chloe, about the wedding, the down payment, the monthly transfers. I told him about the locksmith. I watched his face as I spoke. It remained professional, but I saw a muscle tighten in his jaw. When I finished, he was silent for a moment. Then he turned to his computer. Mrs. Vance, your husband was not just a remarkable man. He was a brilliant one. He had a gift. Let me show you what he built. He turned the large monitor toward me. It was a spreadsheet, but the numbers were so large they seemed unreal. Line after line of holdings, valuations, dividend streams. I saw the names of companies I recognized from the news, companies Robert had invested in when they were nothing more than an idea in a garage. The final number at the bottom of the screen made me gasp. It was from a law firm retained by Mr. and Mrs. Michael Vance. The letter was thick with legal jargon, but its message was clear. It spoke of my advanced age and recent erratic financial behavior. It suggested I was vulnerable to confusion and that my son was deeply concerned for my well-being. It was a thinly veiled threat to file for a conservatorship, to have me declared incompetent and seize control of my assets, the assets they had no idea even existed. For a moment, a cold fear gripped me. They were trying to paint me as a confused old woman. They were trying to erase me. I took a deep breath, then I scanned the letter and emailed it to Mr. Chen. His reply came within the hour. Do not worry, Mrs. Vance. This is a classic intimidation tactic. They are fishing in the dark. They have no idea what they are up against. My legal team will handle this. 2 days later, a copy of Mr. Chen's response was sent to me. It was a masterpiece of professional annihilation. It politely but firmly stated that I, Eleanor Vance, was of sound mind and body and was being represented by the firm of Sterling and Finch. It referenced my substantial and well-managed portfolio and noted that any attempt to file a frivolous legal action would be met with a vigorous countersuit for harassment. It was like watching a master chess player dispatch an amateur in 3 moves. Checkmate. There was no reply from their lawyer. There was only silence. Then about a month after that first day in the kitchen, the invitation arrived. It came not as a card in the mail, but as a text message from Chloe. The casual cruelty of it was breathtaking. Eleanor, I'm hosting the annual fundraiser for the Children's Literacy Fund at the house on the 15th. It's a very important night for us. Of course, you're welcome to come, if you feel up to it. Do try to wear something appropriate. There it was, the performance, the public display of her magnanimity and my supposed frailty. He has a gap-toothed smile and is waving a small American flag, his face alight with pure, uncomplicated joy. I picked it up, my thumb stroking the cool glass over his small face. I remembered the weight of his sleeping head on my shoulder after a long day at the park, the milky scent of his hair, the fierce protective love that felt like it could stop a train. A wave of doubt, cold and sharp, washed over me. What was I about to do? I was about to walk into a party filled with strangers and humiliate my only son, to destroy the life he had built, however false its foundations. Was this justice, or was it revenge? Was I honoring Robert's wish to protect me, or was I indulging my own wounded pride? The grief for the boy in the photograph, for the family we once were, was a physical ache in my chest, a tightness that made it hard to breathe. For a moment, a long, terrifying moment, I considered not going. I could stay here in my quiet sanctuary. I could let them have the house. I'd owned it for 20 years. It was not fashionable. It was not expensive, but it was well made and it fit me perfectly. It was a dress that knew who I was. It was my armor. I slipped it on. Then I picked up my handbag. It wasn't one of Chloe's designer purses. It was an old canvas tote with a faded logo from the Museum of Natural History, a souvenir from a trip we had all taken together the year Michael was born. It was frayed at the corners and softened with age. Inside, among my wallet and my reading glasses, was a single crisp manila envelope. Inside that envelope was the deed. I took one last look in the mirror. I saw Eleanor Vance, a woman who knew her own worth. I picked up my keys from the small dish by the door. It was time. The house on Willow Creek Lane was ablaze with light. Cars lined the perfectly manicured street, expensive models gleaming under the streetlights. A string quartet was playing somewhere inside, the faint, elegant music drifting out into the cool night air. I walked up the stone path, the same path Michael had learned to ride his bike on, and I felt a profound sense of dislocation. This was my house, but it was not my home. I stepped inside. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume, hothouse flowers, and money. A crowd of people in glittering gowns and dark suits filled the foyer and living room, their laughter and chatter echoing off the high ceilings. Waiters moved among them with trays of champagne and tiny, elaborate appetizers. I stood there for a moment, an island of gray wool in a sea of silk and sequins. I looked completely out of place, a drab little sparrow in an aviary of peacocks, and that was exactly what I wanted. Then I saw her. Chloe was holding court near the large fireplace, a glass of champagne in her hand. I'm fine right where I am. I found a spot near the wall where I could simply watch. I saw Chloe whisper to a friend, her eyes darting towards me, followed by a shared conspiratorial smile. I saw Michael studiously avoid my gaze, his face pale. I saw the performance of their life, and for the first time I saw the cracks in the facade. Earlier, as I was walking up the path, I had seen the catering manager speaking with Chloe near the kitchen door. Her expression was tight, and Chloe's card was discreetly handed back to her. Chloe's face had flushed, and she'd quickly produced another card. The interaction was brief, but I saw it, the first sign of rot in the foundation. Finally, the moment came. Chloe tapped a glass with a spoon, the clear, ringing sound silencing the crowd. She stepped onto the low hearth of the fireplace, positioning herself in the spotlight. Or were you just happy to spend it? Chloe was speechless. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. And my final question, Chloe, I said, my voice dropping slightly, becoming more intimate, forcing everyone to lean in. Do you remember telling me, in the kitchen of this very house, that you were changing the locks and sending me to a home for the elderly because you needed your privacy? The silence in the room was now a physical presence. It was thick, heavy, suffocating. I let the weight of it press down on them. Then I spoke to the room. For the last 5 years, I said, my voice ringing with a clarity that surprised even me, I have given my son and his wife $345,000. Money my husband, a humble high school physics teacher, saved his entire life. Money I gave them for their wedding, for this house, for their cars and their clothes and their club memberships. Money you took, without question, before you threw me out. I paused, letting that number hang in the air. I saw people exchange glances. The room was recalibrating. The story they'd been told about the wealthy young couple and the dotty old mother dissolving before their eyes. Then I reached into my canvas tote bag, the one with the faded museum logo. It felt wonderfully, absurdly out of place. I pulled out the crisp, folded document from the manila envelope. I walked to the large marble coffee table where Chloe had left her champagne flute. I placed the deed on the table. The sound the paper made against the stone was not loud, but in the dead silence it was a thunderclap. It was solid, definitive. This, I said, my voice perfectly calm, is the deed to this house. It is in my name, Eleanor Vance. It has always been in my name. My husband bought this house with cash in 1998. It was cool and crisp against my hot face, smelling of damp earth and distant wood smoke.